I'm going to be making 3 lamps and 3 little animals today. And this first lamp is going to be a stained glass lamp. And I'm going to be using triple thick for all these lamp shades that I'm making. And these can be found on my blog spot, and you can link to that through my bio, and they're free. If you want to get them, I have them in different sizes. And this is the largest one from, if you print it at the actual size. And I'm just going around with a little bit of black magic marker to cover the white edges as much as possible. Being very careful not to smudge it. And then I'm going to fold it with this bookbinding tool to make it look like glass panels. Now there's all sorts of things you could do with this to make it look even more real, but I'm not going to go to that length at this point. I'm going to just keep it as it is, and I'm going to coat it with triple thick. I ended up putting almost 4 coats on it to stiffen it, to make it look like glass. And it would be nice to be able to light this, but I don't have a means to do that yet. But I have put a little fairy light under it, and it looks like stained glass when you put the light under it, so it's pretty cool, but these won't be lit. This is the first coat of triple thick that I'm going to put on, and I'm just going to use that as a glue to close it up. And this is the base for the lamp. It's just a button and a rail from a staircase that I bought. I had to cut the staircase down for my dollhouse. So I took 2 of these rails and saved them. And this is just a button that I'm sanding to make sure I put something in the holes. A little bit of clay, and then I let it dry and I'm sanding it. And that's just a wooden bead. So this is a very simple lamp stand for the shade. And I'm just using Ultra Control super glue. And the other button, I'll just paint that, and that will go inside the shade to help hold the shade in place. And then it'll have a finial on top of that later, but you won't see that until the end. I'm just cutting it down to make sure it's the right size. All right. And I found this paint in my garage, and I bought it 12 years ago and never opened it. So I had just opened it for this after shaking it, and it's really lovely paint. It's like almost a bronze color. It's a little lighter than that. But I thought this would make a perfect metallic color for this particular stand. So glad I found it. I'll be using it on other stuff. The shade has had all the coats now put on it of the triple thick, and there it is. I even put it underneath. It still has some flexibility to it, but that's the button I'm going to use to put inside to hold it on. I'm just going to give it a little more around the edges just so it doesn't come off. And then I'll glue it onto the stand. And that will be almost finished. It'll still have to have, I cut it down again because it just was too long. So I had to get it at the right height. And that looks like it's probably the right height. So I'm just going to give it another coat of paint. Paint the bottom. I think I only had to give this 2 coats of paint. The paint's very thick. And I don't remember why I bought the paint. Now, this is the chicken. Now, I lost the film. You didn't see the chicken. It was a little white, rubbery chicken. And I made a stand out of balsa wood, 2-layer stand. And I painted it, I think this is burnt umber. Painted the whole thing burnt umber, just so that it would close up the white, because it was so pure white. And it was just a really cheap little thing. And now I'm letting that dry. You can see it off to the side, and I'm just going to glue this back on. It actually fell off, and because I didn't sand it properly on the end, so I painted the end. You know, I don't know why. I shouldn't have. And so I had to re-glue it and set it up so that it would, there. Now it's going to stay. And I have the first coat. I'm going to put on the next shade. I'm going to put the first coat of triple thick on that. And it looks pretty cute. I'm going to put a finial on top so it looks more finished. And I'm going to put this one on a piece of plastic. And that's what the pattern looks like. And that's also in my Blogspot site. You can get that. That's on that same sheet of paper. And I ended up putting 4 coats of this on too. I put 3 on the top and 1 on the back, and then I ended up painting the back after that. And I'm just going to close that up. And this one I didn't have to fold because it doesn't have that same geometric shape to it because of the stained glass. And this is what I'm going to make this lampstand out of. Just a few beads and a button and a stick. And that's just a skewer that I cut. And I'm using this button to stabilize the bottom of this to make sure that it'll sit straight. Then I'll just glue that bead on top. I was trying all sorts of sizes of beads and stuff, and this just seemed to look more like what I wanted, like a ginger jar lamp stand, so that was what I was after. And I'll just glue that stick in, and I'll end up painting that gold later. And I thought I was going to use this lampshade for this lamp, but I didn't end up doing that. I ended up using a lampshade I had made previously. So I painted it white, and those little roses you see on the table, those are rub-ons, and I'm going to rub on when I get enough coats of paint on this, and I'll have to sand it too. I'm going to rub those flowers onto the base of the lamp, and then I'll end up putting triple thick over it, probably 3 layers to make it look ceramic. Now this is my little pet kitty that's going in my dollhouse, and this came with some Horseman dolls, and it's very cheesy. You can press it, and it's just, squishy, but it's the right size. It's 1/12, and I thought his face looked kind of weird, and I didn't like the gray. I'm using the museum wax, by the way, to hold my objects on that balsa wood so I can paint them without painting my hands too much. And I'm just going to put black and white and a sort of orange. I'm going to make him a calico. I was always partial to these types of cats, so I decided this will be in the dollhouse. And I'm going to do a dog too later, so there'll be 2 pets at least, a cat and a dog. And I'm not working from a picture. I just am pulling this out of my imagination. This is just how I imagine it to look. But I did notice that orangey yellow color I was using was a little dull. And so I ended up getting some more paint out and going over those spots to make them look a little more orangey. And so I'm just painting in the white in between the spots. And I'm just using apple barrel paint. Very inexpensive paint. But it gives good coverage, so at least the matte paint does. And it dries quickly. And the brushes I'm using are very fine. I'm using Kolinsky sable brushes. These are actually for oil painting, but I use them. I'm very careful how I wash my brushes afterwards. I take care of my brushes, so I'm not concerned about it. I just find that the Kolinsky sable comes to a very sharp point at the end, and for fine work it just makes it easier for me. Here's the other color I'm going to add because it just wasn't bright enough, so I ended up putting, I think, 3 coats on top of that, and then I painted it all a couple of times over. The gray of the cat was hard to cover for some reason. It was kind of shiny, rubbery stuff, and it just didn't want to stick very well. So I have 3 members of my household in my little 1930s dollhouse, and it'll have 2 cats. No, I'm sorry. It'll have a cat and a dog. It might have 2 dogs, though, because I have two dogs I could paint, actually, for this. And maybe I'll even do a canary in a cage. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, that's what I have so far. I haven't put any of the details in. And I do end up going over it again. This is a rather long video. I hadn't made a really long one in a while, and instead of doing 2 videos, I decided to just make this one video with 6 items in it. Because I'm working on my dollhouse, and I'll be filming more about that as much as I can. I'm waiting for some wood panels to come. I'm going to have the whole outside of the dollhouse will actually be wood, so it was a certain type of wood that I wanted, and I have to wait for it to come in the mail. Now I'm going to start putting the details into with the face. I just put a stripe of black down the nose. And he needs eyes, he needs a nose, and he needs a mouth. Okay. More paint, just to make sure. It did brighten up color a little bit. Now I'm going to do the eyes and the mouth too. And I'm just doing some touch up. Sorry about the background noise. My husband is doing something. I'm not sure. I think he's trying to fix the printer. And these are Inktense pencils. I'm going to give the kitty blue eyes. And go over the mouth a little with some other darker color. And you'll have black pupils. And even the white pencil helps me to kind of touch things up. And when I'm done, I'm going to give this whole thing a coat of matte Mod Podge, a couple coats, and then I'm going to put some triple thick, just a dot of it on each eye and on his nose. And just putting a little pink inside the ears. And trying to give it some whiskers, not much, because they just won't end up looking like whiskers. And outline the eye with some black. Okay, he's getting there. He's not quite done, but I will finish him soon. I'm going to let him dry a little bit. But I do have this other pen. It's white, and it's really good for putting spots where it needs a few spots. So just do that before I put the Mod Podge on it. More touch-ups. Seems like it's never finished. That's why it takes me a while. I'm always going back and doing more. I'm not using the same paintbrush. I actually have 4 paintbrushes that I was using through this process. I just grab them as I need them. And not done yet, but getting there. You'll see him finished at the very end because I do more detail on him. But I'll let him dry, and then once he's dry, I can put the Mod Podge on him. Now, I'm going to move ahead and put another coating of the triple thick over the lampshade, this lampshade. I have a lampshade that's already done for the lamp that will have the roses on it. So you won't see that get made, but it's similar. The way I made it is similar to this. Okay, now I'm going to go to the chicken. I had this really cheap toy, and it was very tiny, and it was just this little rubber chicken, kind of rubbery plastic. And I built a little balsa wood stand for it out of 2 layers and painted the entire thing with burnt umber. I lost that piece of film, what this chicken looked like beforehand. I don't know what happened. It's gone. So anyway, it was a little white rooster, and it just had a little red comb and 2 little dots for black eyes. Other details were not present. And it's just kind of a soft, rubbery sort of plastic. And I thought, well, this would make a good kitchen chicken. So I'm making this for the kitchen. My mother always had a ceramic rooster in her kitchen. And I've raised chickens for years and years. And I'm making this one look like a pet chicken that I had at one point. It was a rooster, and he liked to live in the barn with the goats and made friends with one of the goats. He slept with this goat all the time, and they followed each other, and they were great friends, and he didn't want to be with the other chickens, so I let him live in the barn with the goats. And that's what this chicken's going to look like, is him. His name was Mr. Roosty. Not a very original name, but that's what I called him. So this is a sort of Mr. Roosty memorial, and it will go into my 1930s kitchen somewhere. I'll have to find room for it. My mother always kept it on a shelf above the sink. When I was growing up, she always kept one there. And so I'm going to make this look like ceramic with a glaze on it, and it will be, I'm painting it in some detail, and these are just acrylic paints that I'm using, a mixture of apple barrel and golden, which is a wide gap between these 2 types of paint as far as expense and quality, but I'm using both paints, both brands in this rooster because I have a range of colors I'm looking for. I want him to be as realistic as I can make him. going to put a little bit of blue and green in the amongst the black tail feathers to try to mimic that sort of iridescence that those feathers have on this particular breed of chicken. And they have it on the wing area as well. The feathers are not actually blue, but they do look bluish and greenish when you see them in the sun, when light reflects off them, kind of like a butterfly's wings. And touch it up as I go along. This actually took quite a long time to paint. You don't get that sense of it here because I'm moving this pretty quickly. It's sped up quite a bit. The rooster's feathers were layered. You know, he had a different textures and kinds of feathers, from the neck feathers all the way to the back and the wings and the tail. And there's a little portion of grass that he'll be standing on, and I'll paint his legs too. And that's the green I'm going to use for the grass and also the feathers. So this one took quite a few touching up layers to achieve that look as far as I could on this little bitty thing. He is small. And I'll put the triple thick all over this to make it look like it's glazed ceramic at the end. But you'll see him when he's complete, if you stick with me. And as I said, the base is just made out of balsa wood, 2 layers, and I just glued him on top. And there's the grass. And those are the white, kind of fluffy feathers that often will grow on the rooster before the tail feathers branch out from there, at least on this particular breed. And I'm just painting his legs, his feet. Roosters do grow these very big spurs on the backs of their feet. And of course this doesn't have those there. But I used to have to cut them because they can harm each other pretty badly with them. And even people if roosters get aggressive. This one doesn't have any spurs. There he is. And he'll get a coating of triple thick and a little bit of touch-up before that. And the base of it I'm going to make look a little bit like stone. So I'm going to use a little gray and a little black to kind of model it. And then hopefully it'll look a little bit like a kind of stone platform. And it did, actually. After it dried and I put the triple thick on it. I ended up putting 3 coats of triple thick on them, I think. 3 or 4. There he is. And I did end up doing the tail feathers a little bit more black on those. And I'm going to cover the cat. I didn't use, I thought I used Mod Podge, but actually I used golden matte medium on him, which is actually better than Mod Podge. It tends to level out better, dry even more clearly. And it's very tough. And then when that dries, I'll I'll put some triple thick on his eyes and his little nose. I'm just sanding this because I want it to be really smooth. This is 1000 grit sandpaper. And then I'm going to rub this right on to the outside of this. Now I had some trouble with this, but I did manage to get it all on there eventually. I did have to touch up the paint on it in certain places. Unfortunately, I did manage to leave some of that flour behind on the paper, and then I had to keep going over it, and it kind of cracked it a little bit. So this was a tough one. You see how I left it on the back, and then I tried to piece it together. I did manage to get this fixed, but I had to actually go over it with some paint. I peeled it off by hand and stuck it on. It does have a sort of adhesive to it. And then I ended up patching it with Inktense pencils and actually some watercolor. And you'll see at the end, you can't tell that I did that. I got my Winsor & Newton paint set out, watercolor paint set, and filled it in and mixed the colors to match, and it worked. And then I put one more decal on it on the top. I put a rosebud, but I don't know if I have that included here. But this actually worked. I was able to make it look like it was a whole piece. These flowers were pretty detailed, so they're actually moss roses. Antique moss rose is what they're supposed to be. So I just painted it in. My husband bought me that watercolor set for my birthday last year. And I went onto the site where they sell it, and I was shocked at how much it cost. It was really, really expensive. This Winsor & Newton paint tray. And so it was a nice present. And I've been using it. That's what I took the rose off of, is that sheet of flowers. And I'm going to use it, just grab that one rosebud down there and add it. I ended up having to touch that up as well because for some reason it wasn't behaving as it should. I was using my fingernail to rub it on, and maybe that wasn't sufficient. I ended up having to fill in some of the green parts because it just didn't make it. But fortunately, I have enough colors that I can do that, especially with this paint set. And I'll go back and wash that paint tray afterwards. There. So I was able to fix it, and it worked out just fine. And I'm going to put some more triple thick on my Rooster. Actually, I'm going to put the first coat of triple thick on the Rooster and let that dry and go back over it again when it's dry. I do believe I gave it 3 coats now that I think about it, but I don't show it all. And it is a little milky when it goes on, but it dries perfectly clear. Makes a very hard coat. And I do that on the base of the base of 2 of the lamps I make. I put 3 coats on this one. as well to make it look like ceramic. And does a good job of making it look like ceramic after the second coat, actually, but I did go ahead and put 3 on. Now I'm going to I put the lampshade on. That lampshade came from another batch of paper lampshades. And I'm gluing a finial on top, which is just a pink bead. And there, well, that's finished. And I thought it turned out rather well. The shade I know is not white, but I didn't want it to be white. I wanted it to have more of a aged look to it. And this will go in my dollhouse somewhere. Now I'm making another base, and same one of the same beads. I'm just flipping it the other way, and I'm putting it on top of a bigger button as the base. And then I'll have a piece of lollipop stick, which is actually made out of paper on this one, to stick in there as the thing that holds the lampshade on. And I'm going to use that lampshade that's right there near the scissors for this lamp. Just glue that stick in. I didn't use a wooden bead for this one. I just wanted it to look flat on top and just be a completely different lamp. So I ended up painting this one blue. I'm just trying out to see the finials, and I'm going to use a blue bead for this one. And I'll mix up some paint. I decided on the blue. It's called Pool Blue, and it's also from Apple Barrel. I cleaned my tray. I do clean them. So I know some people don't clean up their palettes. I don't clean them as much as I should, probably, or maybe some people think I should clean them more, but I clean them as much as necessary, let's put it that way. I decided to add a little bit of ultramarine to the color because it was a little bit too faded looking to me. So I put some golden ultramarine in it, and I like it better. And it made it a little bit better coverage, but I ended up giving it several coats of paint as well on this one, and sanding them in between. And I will paint the bottom of that too. As you can see, it's a button. And I painted, had triple thick on the inside, but I decided to paint the inside of it blue as well. I just felt like it. I just wanted to. I just felt like I needed it. So anyway, I let that dry. I'm not sure what I'm doing there, but fussing with it somehow. That lamp was finished, and now I'm put it on a base after it dried to make it a little easier, so I didn't, you see how much paint I have in my hands, so I said, well, I guess I will put it on that base with the museum wax, and then I don't have to get more paint on my hands. Okay, now what I did is I also lost some film here. I'm just putting nail art for fingernails, right, onto the base to decorate it. And these are kind of like jewels or something, and I thought they looked kind of cool. So I'm putting them all around the whole thing. And then I'm going to put triple thick over it. And it does have some real sticky stuff on it. I didn't use super glue with this one like I have in the past. I just stuck them on because the triple thick will hold them there. And I'm just painting the part of it metallic color. It's gold that holds up the lampshade, the pole. So that's the design, but I do end up putting more stickers on it all the way around. And the button that goes inside the lampshade, I'm just putting some gold marker on that, some chrome marker. It does take a little while for that to dry. It doesn't dry instantaneously. you have to let it dry for a while. And I'm putting some more on. Well, that one didn't go on straight, so I just kept having to readjust it. So I ended up using quite a few of these little stickers. I'll have to buy some more at some point when I want to make some more lamps. I still have some flower ones left, nail art, that I used in the lamps for the master bedroom. So, and I used them on also the bed and the chairs that are in the master bedroom. I'm not sure where this lamp's going to go. Maybe I'll put it in the living room, or I could put it in the foyer. I'll figure it out. I think I need just a couple more of these stickers on there to make it even it out a bit. There. Now it'll get some triple thick, and I ended up putting 2 or 3 coats. I think I only put 2 coats on this one. I don't think I did 3. I think after I did the second coat, it was just really quite enough. And it didn't seem like adding a 3rd coat would do anything, so I think I just put 3 coats on, let it dry overnight, actually. Okay, and I'm just touching up around the rim of the lampshade with some gold, and I have to put the button in there to hold it on, and this will also have a finial. And I'm touching up some of the gold that was originally on the outside. And this has a 18th century illustrations on the outside of that lamp. Kind of cute. I'm just going to glue that together. I had a little trouble getting this one to stick, but you'll see. I don't know if I included my struggle. I guess I didn't. Oops. I put the finial on it. There it is. But I'm moving awfully fast, so there's all 3 of them. All done. And I'll have more pictures at the end because I do some touch-ups. Now I'm going to make another little animal, and I'm going to use this epoxy sculpt to make a tail for a little horse, because this little horse is just a little piece of plastic like that chicken. It came in the same bag, and it didn't really have a tail. You see that? No tail, not really. Just a little nub. So he needs a tail. So I'm going to use epoxy sculpt, which is a 2-part epoxy sculpting medium. And I just made him a little tail. It takes really about, I don't know, 10, 12 hours before you can work with it after it sits. And I'm just working this so that it will stay on but not be too thick. I had to cut some pieces out of it. And then I did let it sit overnight, but you don't see that here, of course. And there it is, almost finished. He's kind of a stubby little horse, but I thought he was cute. This is how I made the base for the chicken. Same thing. I just cut some scrap balsa wood and glued it together and sanded the ends of it, and to give it a little bit of a different look. Sanded the corners off, rounded them off, and then glued them together. I just put a little bit dab of wood glue on it, and then I glued the horse to the base. This time I painted the base first because the horse is going to be a different color. It's a horse of a different color. This is going to be a dun colored horse with a black mane and tail and a stripe, a dorsal stripe down the back, which they often would have, and kind of darker legs and black hoofs. So this will be the dun horse. Some people call it buckskin, but this is a little lighter than a buckskin. And I glued him on with the Ultra Control glue, and now I'm just going to go ahead and paint all of the details. I'm going to do the same thing with this little horse that I did with the chicken, and paint him in some detail, and then I'm going to put triple thick over him, and I did end up putting 3 coats on him. And I'm using basically the same paint. It's a combination of golden and apple barrel paints, and they're acrylics. But I didn't make the base of this look like stone this time. I just left it the brown color, the burnt sienna. Actually, burnt umber is what it is. And I just touched it up a bit. I kept the base a solid color. I'm putting his dorsal stripe on. I think that's what it's called. I used to know all that stuff about horses, colors and breeds and stuff, and I've forgotten a lot over the years. So I grew up riding and all that, had horses. Okay, and I have him on that little stick with the museum glue so I don't paint my hands too much. And I'm putting on the triple thick. That's why I stopped it so you could see. Okay, and there he is. He's finished. So I made this portion a little bit shorter. And I couldn't get him off of that because I put so much triple thick on it, it just dried on there, so I ended up having to cut it off. But that's what he looks like. He had to be touched up a little bit after that. And there he is, touched up. He's very shiny, has some real shiny spots on him. And there's the kitty. And he needs a little bit of touch up yet, but you'll see at the end. And there's that rooster. And I did touch him up a little too after this and put more triple thick on him. And there's the lamp with the finial. That's finished. And there's the one with the rub-on decals that broke apart, but I managed to fix them. And I did some touch-up on that too, as well as that. So here are the finished lamps, and they're all touched up. And then you'll see the finished animals as well. Thank you for watching. I enjoyed making this. I hope you enjoyed it too. Please like and subscribe, and when you come to my channel, visit the community section. I would love to have you there and talk with you. Bye-bye.